As you know, I'm a brief, really quick introduction with Northland. Northland is a Canadian company. I'm glad to be here today to host this panel. I mean, this is an awkward position actually, I'll go this way. We've been talking yesterday about, and been hearing the problems and the difficulties in having a match, it seems, from an energy perspective with the mining industry and the renewable industry. I think Chile has been blessed with the coming of renewables. I think renewable has made an impressive impact. I think it has made an impact that is most likely was not supposed or was not expected to be as impacted as it was or as it is right now. And that causes or creates a challenge both for the industry, for the renewable industry, and then for the energy, the industry in general, and the mining industry. And I guess what we're trying to do here today in this panel is having those three fine gentlemen tell us a little bit more about what solutions they see for the mining industry here in Chile, and what kind of solutions they have to offer. I'll make a brief introduction. As a matter of fact, it was done by Adrian, but we're talking with Pablo Burgos from SolarPack. Welcome, Pablo. Pablo has 20 years experience in the industrial sector. He's been in the telecommunication, I think, and communication and consulting as well. He's a co-founder of SolarPack. Was co-founded in 2005. He's taken the company and transformed the organization into a multinational operation that has passed more than 60 million US dollars revenues. SolarPack has got a great success, and particularly, or has had a great success, or has a great success in Latin America, where it's recognized as a reference in the market in Chile and Peru. Previously, Pablo took positions in very important multinational companies such as Anderson Consulting, PepsiCo, I guess Spain, right? And Loop Telecom, and del Grupo Guascor. Tom Georges on his right-hand side. Tom, welcome. Senior Vice President of Solar Reserve. Tom is Senior Vice President of Development, leads Solar Reserve's efforts to develop large-scale solar, thermal, and photovoltaic energy projects in America and Asia. In addition to managing Solar Reserve's project development portfolio in the U.S., Tom is responsible for steering the company's expansion to China, Australia, and Latin America. He has held several senior management positions, and his diverse expertise includes structuring transactions for energy infrastructure, project negotiations with lenders, and advising investors in all aspects of energy project acquisition and project development. Quite a feat. Gonzalo Moyano. It's funny here because I have Spanish and English. Why don't you guys put that in English? Director of Development for Pattern Energy Development Chile. So I guess it's called Pattern Development Chile. Gonzalo is Director of Business Development for Pattern Development in Chile, and he is in charge of identifying new business opportunities, developing wind and solar projects, making strategic acquisition of assets, as well as marketing power purchase agreements, or PPAs. And you are also affiliated with the Scholar of New York University's Institute of Policy Integrity, and visiting scholar as a University of Chile School of Law. He also holds a Master's of Law from New York University and an LLB from University of Chile School of Law. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here and attending the panel. We'll do this in this format. I guess you're used to it from yesterday. We'll ask the questions. We'll talk to our panelists. They'll respond. And if you have questions, please feel free. Yesterday, I personally didn't feel there was a lot of questions. I don't know if there was no a need for questions, or it's just that you felt it wasn't necessary. I think it's very necessary to hear your thoughts as well. We can talk. We know the industry. We are dealing with that every day. We'd like to hear your say as well. So I really welcome you at the end to ask some questions if necessary. Okay, so first questions for you guys. Where do renewable leaders see the biggest opportunities for partnership between these sectors in Chile? Now, I don't have a preference to start with, so you know what I'll do? I'll just start with you.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to the organizers for this great event. I think it's a great opportunity. So I think it was very interesting to hear the minister yesterday, to hear about Chile as a mining country. I think that's part of who we are as a country. And I think it is and it will continue to be a mining country. So that presents great opportunities moving forward over the long term. Beyond the variations in markets, copper prices, there's going to be great investments moving forward in the mining sector. And the renewable energy sector is ready to provide the energy that it's necessary for those investments. And I think it's very interesting, and I think on the next questions we will touch on other issues more closely, is that the sector has shown to be ready for that. We have shown to be a reliable partner, a competitive partner, and I think we're in a great position to work with the mining industry moving forward, to work with them in those next investments moving forward. We're gonna see many projects moving forward, and therefore, as an industry, I think we are ready to work along them in those opportunities.
Thank you very much. Pablo, you want to take the
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, thank you to Energy and Mines for giving us the opportunity to have this discussion in the panel. Well, I think that this event was really needed and a great opportunity to meet formally between both sectors. I think that for the mining sector, having renewable energy development as it is now in Chile is great news. And I think in two directions. First, as direct opportunities to interact with us and purchasing power. We have seen examples in this conference yesterday, and there will be many others to come. I think that we are all conscious that the format, how these partnerships and these opportunities between renewables and energy mines and mining happened in the last 2-3 years will probably change. I think that we heard carefully about the needs that mining companies have right now. So this is the first vector of how the opportunities will arise. But there is, in my opinion, a second vector. I think that mining companies are benefiting indirectly from a new actor in the sector. I think that Chilean energy sector was concentrated, and the appearance of renewable energy producers, not only delivering energy directly to the mining companies, but indirectly having a new set of kilowatt hours being injected in the grid and making the conventional power companies moving into a more competitive scene. I think this is also a very important indirect benefit for mining operations.
I am very happy you bring this up, and before I go to you, Tom, about the competition for the conventional generators in the country. I think this is a great discussion. It's even maybe worth another panel just on that, right? The approach to how we are perceived and how we can, in a way, co-live together, right? This is not about challenging another and trying to get somebody out. We have to coexist. We've seen this in the States. We've seen this in Canada. We've seen this in Europe. I think we have to coexist, and it's just finding the solution. The more we resist that integration and that approach to renewables, is the more pain we're going to cause to the market, right? So on that, Tom, about pain in the market, where do renewable leaders see that? What's your take on that?
Again, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and more importantly for me, I appreciate the panel agreeing to speak in English. My Spanish is not very good, so thank you. Yeah, I think there are several challenges, not only for the mining sector, but the Chilean market in general. One is capacity. Where is new generation going to come from? The minister has spoken at length about sustainability, the impact from a societal or community standpoint of conventional generation, or more specifically hydro. So it's been, I think, prevalent here in Chile, the challenges with building new coal-fired generation or new hydro. So I think it's important to have a diversification of generation assets, and certainly renewable energy will play a major role going forward in that diversified portfolio of generation assets. But the other key point, which Pablo just mentioned, is pricing and competitiveness. So introducing new actors into the Chilean market, certainly as we heard yesterday and as evidenced by the representatives here from companies around the world, very interested in becoming a participant in the Chilean market. And I think the empirical data that came out of last year's distribution tenders in terms of the number of participants, the types of technology, and more importantly, the pricing that we've seen. And these were for 15-year contracts, so very short-term contracts, but the pricing that was put forth by renewable energy entities was extremely competitive, in my opinion. And I think what will happen in Chile is what we've seen in other markets. As we deploy more wind, more PV, more solar thermal, the pricing will inherently come down, and that can only benefit the competitiveness of the mining sector. And so as renewable energy companies, that's part of the message that we want to put forth, is that A, that this is reliable technology, it does work, it's proven, and B, as you adopt more and more of this type of technology, the price is going to come down over time.
Good point. I agree and I support that. I think we've seen this, as we said before, in other markets, quite an impressive price reduction, and I guess the merging and the emergence of new technology only made the market more competitive, and that's like I said before, good for everybody. So to the next question, how is renewable energy sector evolving to meet the energy needs of mines here in Chile? That's we've heard this yesterday again. Well, you know, we have very specific load curves, right? And we come with renewables, and maybe with your technology it's a bit different. We have more of a base load profile, but in solar or wind, you know, you don't have the exact profile that's required from for mining operations. And so what is there? What can you talk about in terms of that, Gonzalo, please?
So I think this brings us back, if you look back in not very long ago, 4 years ago, when you approach mining companies, there were a different set of questions, whether this was a cost competitive industry, whether it was reliable, something that Tom was pointing out. And I think that if we look back and see ourselves now, I think there's an interesting evolution that puts us on a different scenario. I think that we are in a position that we have evolved into very interesting price reductions. So we are much more competitive now than we were. I think that has been a great game changer. I think at the same time, the fact that the renewable industry has arrived to Chile also has required for the industry to address some of the challenges that this specific market presents, and even conditions. And I think we have done a great job in addressing those issues. I think we have been able, and speaking from pattern, to work along the mining industry in order to address some of those initial concerns, not only from a cost perspective, but also presenting them technology solutions that fit the conditions of the mining industry. And at the same time, I would say that the other interesting process is that this industry has been able to successfully work with the mining industry to understand on a deeper level how a renewable energy supply can work with their operations in terms for intermittency, which was something that yesterday was quite in the center of the debate. And I think that we have been able to work on those lines, and there has been an evolution from looking back again 4 years ago to now, where we have, as an industry, better understood how the mining industry thinks about renewable energy and how to adapt to that reality. So I think there has been an interesting evolution in those fronts, I would say.
That's very interesting, Gonzalo. The Pattern and Solar Pack has had success in working with the mines, but specifically in your case with El Arrayán, no? I think is the wind farm with Antofagasta. I'm very curious to ask you, and I'll continue with the question here for you guys, but specifically, what would you recommend as a developer, ourselves and these guys, what would you recommend is the best approach to talking to the mine? Is it sitting down with them and trying to understand them? Is it a lengthy process? Is it something very specific they're looking for? What is that trick? What makes it happen? That's very interesting and important, I think, to understand.
Thanks for the question. I think it's a very interesting one. I would say that one key element, which in fact Nicolas Causat from AMSA pointed out yesterday, was that it is crucial that developers approach mining companies with a project that is solid, with a project that is mature enough, with a project that has addressed all of the most relevant issues, and also understanding the specifics of what a renewable energy project requires here in Chile, addressing the very unique features ranging from mining concessions, for instance, to community approach and engagement. So I would say the first crucial part is to have a solid and mature project. The second one, I would say, is for a developer to approach a mining company is to have a track record, to really understand and have experience in this market, and actually not only developing, but operating renewable energy assets. I would say that's a second very important issue. And at the same time, I think that a third aspect that I would say is crucial as well is to be able to have both the flexibility but also the creativity to work with the mining company, understand their needs, understand their concerns, and have the flexibility to adapt to those those concerns and understand them, and being able to, again, which was something that was pointed out yesterday, to be creative and innovative to find solutions to those concerns. So I would say those are the three most relevant aspects.
It's pretty much in line with what we heard, and I think the word creative, Pablo, is what comes to mind. When we talk about creative or think creative, we think, well, you know, let's go out of the box here. Let's do something, you know, like let's try to adapt. And in any industry, I think we'll all agree that when you bring new projects, new product, new technology, you need to be able to adapt. You need to be able to adapt to the market. Is it? I guess the fine line is it fair to ask the market to adapt to you? That's, I guess, is one of the debate we could have at a later stage. So Pablo, what do you think about that in terms of the energy needs of the mine and how we should adapt to them to bring that fit?
Well, there has been clearly an evolution in their needs, and the perception the mining companies have now of what renewable energy developers can offer them is different to what was like 2-3 years ago. I think in the first projects that went online here, we satisfied very basic needs to mining companies. I would summarize these needs in first a hedge on electricity price. I think that we all remember what happened 3-4 years ago, 2-3 years ago, or probably even less in the country. So mining companies were exposed to price evolutions that they didn't control, and that was a risk for them. And renewable energy offered a hedge, a natural hedge on pricing for that, which was very appealing. First, we had to reach a certain level of competitiveness. Otherwise, this would not fly. But we were competitive because we entered into, free agreements between the parties. But hedge was first thing. Second, there was a need coming from the renewable energy law requiring these credits. So this was a need that was created in the country to spur the development, which helped. And probably will help if the rhythm slows down in the market. I think that today nobody's worried, but as Veronica Cortez told yesterday, this is a problem that conventional generators transferred actually to the consumers, to the energy, to the mining companies, because they didn't have the means to fulfill. So these were the basic needs. I think that today we are in a more evolution stage, and we have to satisfy needs to provide a more stable supply to the mining companies and be able to compete in a more face-to-face in terms of quality of our power, more face-to-face to conventional power companies. So there is clearly an evolution there. I think that talking about creativity, we have a great advantage on renewables because we are free of any full dynamics, full price dynamics in the future. So I think that we have a very good platform to develop creative solutions. But I think that we all need to understand much better the dynamics of the electricity market in Chile. Probably we are most of the rural energy developers are new to the country, and we need to understand deeper the dynamics in the market and then be ready to propose creative solutions to them.
I agree with that, and coming back to the first portion of your comment, your first point, you talked about hedging and using that as a tool, of course, to financially balance their needs. I mean, we know the energy needs of a mining industry are quite high, can reach as much as 30% or 30-some odd percent of their full operation costs, and I guess what I heard again was, yes, well, that's especially in solar, right? So you're giving me 1/3 of my energy need guaranteed. I'm hedging on that. I need a more adapted baseload solution. And I come to you, Tom, with your project. Maybe you can explain that, how, from a project perspective, but also from a need perspective, how does that make a case for the industry here in Chile?
Sure, not to give a marketing pitch about our company or our technology, but one of the primary concerns, as Pablo mentioned, for the mining sector is firm supply. And so we kept hearing yesterday the challenge or the issue of intermittency. And so, throughout the globe, one of the key industry topics these days is storage. And so we do have a unique technology that allows solar to be dispatched on a 24/7 basis, and happy to talk about that more at length. But that's, when we talk about collaboration with the mining sector, that's what their requirement is. So as an industry, we have to help solve that problem for them. So they appreciate the fuel hedge, they appreciate that there's zero emissions, but more importantly, they need stable, firm supply on a 24/7 basis. They need the industry to be able to match their load, comparable to a conventional power plant, be it a coal facility or a natural gas facility. And so I think we saw a few presentations yesterday, and Solar Reserve will be presenting later today about how either these hybrid mixes or new technologies will be able to address the electricity requirements of the industry, of the mining sector. And then certainly, once we're able to provide those type of solutions, we need to be competitive from a pricing perspective. And I think we're getting there, but that's going to come with scale. It's going to come with deployment. But it's not unique to Chile. It's not unique to the mining sector in South Africa, the United States, Morocco, quite a few countries that have more of a baseload profile. They need capacity, they need renewable energy, and they need the renewable energy technologies to match their requirements. And so that's our responsibility. But that may take a little time before more of these technologies are deployed. And so in the interim, again, Pablo raised a good point on how the transmission system, and that could be a separate panel, on how the transmission system is going to deal with renewable energy. Chile has been traditionally a baseload supply, and so introducing intermittency or technologies that will work at night or will only work during the day, and how that's managed by the SEDEC, certainly something that, again, not unique to Chile. All system operators have to deal with it as renewable energy gets deployed into the system. And so that will play a role in how we come up with creative solutions for the mining sector. Is it, working with the incumbent generators or having a various portfolio of renewable technologies, I believe, as SunEdison mentioned yesterday, hydro, wind, solar PV, or in the case of solar reserve, solar thermal with storage, or is it PV with storage, or is it PV with natural gas? But then we get into what's the LNG price going to be going forward. So you can say it's all of the above, but the conclusion is the mines need power 24/7, and if we're going to compete as a renewable energy industry, we have to come up with that type of solution.
You should talk to Adrian after and advise on some more panels, because I think there's topics of discussions here that are just amazing, and I think we could talk about that in length. And one good point, we ourselves have had, and you know that in the States as well, we've had all sorts of issues with intermittency. That's kind of the maybe the black swan, not the black swan, but the black tail, or the negative portion of like renewable coming into a system. It's an intermittent load, and therefore you have to find solution. Would it be like through a solution like yours, or pump storage solution, or battery solutions? We are facing this, and I think in general what we're seeing is that it's not easy. It's not an easy solution that only the IPP can provide. It's something that the system has to be involved in providing as well. So solutions that were suggested yesterday were by Alfredo Solar were very interesting. SunEdison suggested the mix of a consolidated renewable mix, but not every company can do that, and not everyone is in that technology and has the capability of bringing all that together. So I guess now what also interests the big interest we have is how do we, you brought a point, Pablo, before. You said the price, and you also did that. The price went down on technology, right? So this makes our technology more competitive. We've seen this. You come in, it's a new technology, it's very expensive. Now it's more affordable, and we're matching prices. So from that perspective, how can we, and let's go to the financing portion of it, or side of it, how can we finance those deals with the mining industry? What are the financing solutions we can bring? You seem to have those ideas because you've went through that. So maybe you could advise us on that, Gonzalo.
Basically, to what I can say, I think it's going back to what I said before, to the possibility of working along with mining industry, is to have the possibility to find those contractual arrangements that would address the most relevant risks that may make the financing of these projects more difficult. So it's really going back to the question on how the renewable energy industry and the specific developers are able to work along mines to really address those risks, to really find and be, again, going back to the flexibility and have enough creativity to address those risks. Nicolas was pointing to the issue of nodal risk. Well, that's an important risk that must be addressed when thinking about a contract because of the obvious impacts in the financing part of that project. So how the developer is able and has the capacity and the experience and knowledge to not only be able to hear and receive the concerns of the mining industry, but also the way we see it is really a dialogue between the concerns and the view of the mining industry and our view, not only from the technical point of view, but also based on the experience in other markets and how we bring that experience into this specific market. And based on that, have that dialogue. Luis Merson, my colleague at Pattern, was referring to the contractual engineering, which I think it's a very interesting concept in terms of really working on every aspect of the contract that, again, going back to addressing those risks and allowing them to facilitate the financing part. And I think that it's also, the industry has shown that that is possible. As some of the other panelists have also pointed out, this relation is changing and will change. Veronica was also from Collahuasi was saying, well, the tender we conducted 2 years ago was a great experience, but now we set a different set of challenges. The renewable energy sector has changed. The reality of the electric market has changed. Even we will be facing a different grid scenario. So all of that has to come into this mix and into this dialogue between the mining and the renewable energy sector, but having those perspective and approaches very, very in mind.
What do you think, Pablo? Hello? What do you think, Pablo, about that? Is that in line with your thoughts?
I think the good news about having cost reductions even through the last 3 years, I think that yesterday we had very, very clear signals about pricing of renewables in many of the presentations. It is great news. It is great news for us because it frees space to spend money in either taking risk on our side, on market risk, or deploying solutions that help us balance our curve throughout the day, either storage solutions or equivalent solutions. So because as the tenders in last December show, we are very well positioned in terms of price. We were competing with conventional generators, which have an additional risk linked to full prices. So I think that our challenge now is to see how we can take this value that we have created with the reduction of costs and transfer that into capacity of having risk, more risk on our side, and thus offering a more appealing supply to the mining companies. And another point I want to raise is, I think that we all need to discuss if regulation in the Chilean electricity market is well suited to a massive deployment of renewable energy. I think nobody understands why price in the north part of the SIC can be simultaneously to the price in Santiago, a difference between $40 and $120. So does transmission really cost $80 per megawatt hour? That's my question. The answer is no. So probably more transmission has to be deployed, but probably the rules have to be reviewed so that the whole system benefits from lower marginal costs and ultimately from lower tariffs to the consumer.
Agree, and I think the one of the issue with decoupling and transmission constraints is obviously in the part of the answer and what you indirectly asked in terms of price disconnect. I mean, of course, when you have $80 price disconnect, there's a problem. I think that's on its way to be resolved. And we could address that a little bit at a later stage. But Tom, to this essence, you're bringing you're bringing, or we're bringing, solutions to the mining industry from a price pressure perspective, but what other benefits can renewables and your solution, for instance, bring to the mining operation? Is this a real benefit? Is this something that we can lean on and just bring on the table and say, you have these advantages to working with us and developing your operation?
Sure, and I'll address that from a Solar Reserve perspective, but certainly there are going to be new technologies or combination of technologies that will be deployed. But going to the point of the mining sector and contractual ingenuity, creativity, the mining sector is traditionally very conservative, and so I think it's certainly advantageous from a pricing perspective to supply some of the energy from renewable to the mining sector. But I think ultimately they're going to want to have all of their energy supplied from a single entity. So whether that means there are new generators that are created in Chile to compete with the incumbents, contractual complexity is something that ultimately they're going to demand of us to reduce. So the concept of risk sharing is interesting right now. But I think going forward, they're going to put pressure on us, the industry, to say, look, we want firm power, when we need it, at a fixed price, for 20 years or as long as we need it, rather than saying we want, these very interesting, innovative hedging, multiple contracts with multiple counterparties for, small percentages of our ultimate power need. And so I think whether or not there's consolidation on the renewable energy side, there are new, larger generation companies that enter the market that are focused on either renewable or a combination. So they have a portfolio of assets so they can draw upon power from conventional renewable to supply to the mine. I think that's the direction that we as an industry will need to go, again, to minimize risk and minimize the complexity to the mining sector. I think in the interim, yes, and as we evolve, it's necessary, first couple of steps. But as we move forward, we certainly are going to have to address that issue.
Okay, I'm told we have, 5 minutes? Yeah, okay, good. So it's going very fast, as a matter of fact, is it? We're having fun. There's one question I really want to put on the table here, is with respect to, and I guess some of you will be able to answer that, maybe to in more details, because you've already been involved in dealing with the industry and the mining. But is this the solution? What's the outcome of working with mining industries? What are these people? What is this industry seeing or bringing to us in the near future? Are we going to see more interactivity? I have a sense. I guess where I'm going is I have a sense from listening to mining industry and the mining leaders yesterday that 2 years ago, you said that, Pablo, 2 years ago, they were not open to that as much as they are today. They're very conservative. They're not open to new solutions as much as we would want to, but there is definitely an open path right now. What is the future of that for us, for the industry?
I think I somehow disagree with Tom on one point in terms of the willing.
I don't want any feud here.
Well, we're ending, so it has to be.
Okay. You check that right after.
I think that the mining industry has shown that they have the openness and the willingness to find different alternatives. I think that, again, going back to the example that I pointed out, if we look back 4 years ago, maybe not many of us would have think on where we are in such a short period of time. And that has required for that approach from the mining industry. So I think that that process will continue. I think that process will continue based on what we as an industry have been able to show that we can actually deliver, that we can actually find common ground and find solutions. And I think that it's a process that will be also determined by what I said in the beginning of this panel, that Chile is a mining country, investments will continue from the mining industry. We will face different set of challenges. The mining industry is facing different set of challenges. But I think what's interesting is that the mining industry can also provide and be part of the response and adaptation to those new set of challenges that the industry, the mining industry is facing, whether it's not only price, but also enhanced environmental standards, whether it's water scarcity, whether it's a more engaged community. I think that the role of and a partnership and long-term partnership of the mining industry along with the renewable energy can bring win-win solutions under this evolving and challenging scenario for the mining industry moving forward.
Hold that thought and answer that question with broadening the mining and renewable industry relationship. Now, you just talked about it very clearly. You know, let's work on community level. Let's work on common grounds, right? What else? What else is there that we can bring? I'm thinking now from a mining. I'm taking the devil's advocate position from the mining industry. I'm listening to you, and I'd like you to convince me that I can work with you in the future. Why would I do that? Why would I invest not only from an edging perspective or energy perspective? What advantage would I have to work with guys like you? Your mic's not working very well.
Now it's working. I think that again, we could have a panel on that as well. But trying to summarize, I think it goes to and touches different levels. I think it touches on, well, diversify energy supply, have security of supply, again, competitive of price, reliability, but also it touches on these other issues, on how you can, as a mining industry, and as you're facing increased environmental standards, when you incorporate renewable energy supply, you have a positive impact. You can better relate to the potential environmental impacts of the mining industry itself. You can also improve and really incorporate the positive outcomes on a community level, base level, from the incorporation of a renewable energy facility. And also on a level that it's not maybe as considered, but it's also important in terms of other environmental related issues as carbon footprint and others.
Hold that thought there, and Tom, please jump right in. What are the advantages? What are the future of this? What else can be brought in convincing us, let's say the mining industry, I'm not, but the mining industry to go along with those solutions?
Yeah, I think my point earlier was that, you know, the mining sector is looking for power supply. So we can categorize it as conventional renewable, but they need power. They need capacity, they need reliable power, and they needed a pricing that allows them to be competitive globally. I think there was a slide yesterday that showed the price of electricity in Chile versus Australia, China, the United States. And so Chile is a mining company. It has to have competitive, low cost of electricity. As you said, it could be as much as 30% of their operational cost. And so absent that, the renewable energy sector won't survive. And so we have to be competitive on price. Now, certainly, what we're seeing around the globe in interaction with the mining company is an emphasis on the environmental or sustainability of their operations. And so every large mining company, or most mining companies, now have a sustainability officer. And so they're focused very much on their carbon footprint, on their impact on the environment. And so it's sort of an intangible benefit, but it also could be a quantifiable benefit in markets where there are, you know, penalties for, you know, carbon emissions, for greenhouse gas emissions, for impact on water, et cetera. And so there is a cost associated with not being as clean or green or sustainable as other industries. And it's not just in the mining sector. You know, we look across, you know, the entire spectrum of industries, and there is a great emphasis on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, your carbon footprint, and there are penalties from a shareholder perspective, you know, from your corporate board perspective, if you don't perform in those areas. So it's now becoming, I guess, part of the status quo. So it's not just total emphasis on the cheapest, lowest price. I mean, there are these other factors that go into the corporate equation.
Pablo will finish on that because I can see Adrian here shaking her head. And oh, you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you want to go to question? Yeah, please.
My question is for this gentleman here. In Chile, do you have cap and trade? Are you getting carbon cap and trade programs in place? And are you getting pressure from the shareholders of the mine to reduce their carbon footprint? Do the boards of the mines, are they putting pressure on you? Because in Toronto, Canada, in Ontario, from the province that I've come, they've just recently announced a cap and trade for carbon trading, and they're trying to get a pricing of between $12 and $15 a ton. And they've identified 5 vertical markets that are large emitters of carbon: cement and mining and agricultural and buildings. So I was just wondering if that is on the radar in Chile. And thank you.
So in Chile, there is recently has been a tax reform that has introduced a carbon tax. So the system that Chile is taking is the approach of adopting a carbon tax rather than a general cap and trade program. I think that's certainly, and I appreciate the question, because that's another aspect of the advantages of incorporating renewable energy. Because when you see the energy supply of a mining company from a cost perspective, you may see that other conventional sources of energy will be impacted by that carbon tax. If you look at the carbon tax that we're adopting in Chile, it's not very considerable at this time, but it can be expected that it will be increased. At the same time, we're looking, if we look at the general UN framework on climate change, now in the next conference of the parties in Paris, it seems clear that the whole international regime is shifting towards a regime where not only the Annex 1 countries, say developed countries, will be committed to reductions, but also it's shifting the whole framework towards that other countries, including developing countries, will have commitments on that end. So that presents a scenario where also, if we look at the reality of Chile, that's something to be considered, and that it's something that also will be considered when thinking about carbon footprint and the view of the mining companies' boards at that level.
Okay, so do we have any other questions from the audience today? Are we, yes? Do you want to come up and take a mic, or Adrian?
Hola, buenos días. Indudablemente que las energías fotovoltaicas y renovables son el futuro y hacia allá va la tendencia. Sin embargo, ¿ustedes tienen alguna experiencia respecto al impacto en cuanto a la norma técnica de contaminación armónica que estas generadoras pueden? Les comento porque desde hace más de un año nosotros en nuestra faena estamos siendo afectados por contaminación armónica provocada por una planta fotovoltaica que está ubicada en el sector de Pozo Almonte. Y nosotros no hemos tenido contaminación armónica y justo coincide con la entrada de esta planta. Entonces nuestro proveedor nos dice que la empresa esta cumple con la norma técnica, pero no nos ha demostrado que eso es así. Y nosotros, para defendernos de la contaminación armónica, tenemos que desconectar el banco de condensadores, porque los transformadores de potencia tienen un zumbido prácticamente terrorífico. Y ya han habido experiencias que se han quemado transformadores por contaminación armónica, como una vez en el año 2008 en el Tesoro. Así que se ha hablado bastante acá de ventajas, pero no he escuchado acerca del impacto en cuanto a la contaminación armónica y otros efectos que pudieran tener esta tecnología, razón por la cual el año 2008 en nuestra empresa trató de contratar, o sea, implementar una planta de 3 megas con una firma española. las respuestas respecto a temas técnicos no fueron satisfactorios, por lo cual yo me vi en la necesidad de no recomendar la instalación de esta planta, a pesar de que el beneficio económico a contar del séptimo año era bastante importante. Entonces, ¿cuál es el estado del arte respecto de este tema, del impacto en la norma técnica, llámese fundamentalmente en cuanto a contaminación armónica?
Gracias por la pregunta. I won't translate that, Tom. I mean, it's a technical thing on solar. Maybe Pablo can answer that very well.
Correcto. Bueno, no he identificado la planta. Nosotros operamos unas plantas en Pozalmonte, con lo cual es probable, o es posible, aunque hay otras, es posible que se refiera usted a las nuestras. Yo creo que, primero, no hay para nada una evidencia a nivel internacional en sitios, en lugares donde se ha desplegado una capacidad enorme de potencia fotovoltaica, como Alemania, España, Estados Unidos, en el sentido de que las plantas fotovoltaicas, hablo de esta tecnología, yo creo que cada una tiene sus diferencias, causen problemas de armónicos en la red, eso es lo primero, ¿no? Yendo al caso concreto de la red en el norte de Chile, sí es cierto que es una red delicada, todos lo sabemos, pues por su tamaño, muchas veces por la edad y la obsolescencia de algunos de sus equipos, pero como concepto lo que sí puedo decir es que la tecnología fotovoltaica es una tecnología que se acopla a la red, que es seguidora de la red y no es generadora per se de perturbaciones como puedan ser otras tecnologías convencionales o renovables, ¿no? con temas de reactiva, etcétera, ¿no? En cualquier caso, nosotros no tenemos constancia de ese problema y encantados de conversarlo directamente con ustedes, evidentemente siempre con el CEDEC como depositario de la información de lo que está ocurriendo en la red, por supuesto. Pero a priori, como digo, no hay para nada una experiencia en cuanto a que las plantas fotovoltaicas que perturben de una manera significativa la red.
Gracias, Pablo. Y quizás después ya podéis hablar y juntaros para discutir un poco más detalles de eso. ¿Alguna pregunta más?
Jean?
Sí.
Ron Flax Davidson
Where are you,
from
Ron?
Nordex. You see me back here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Wanted to ask the panel about a question on the views of the mining industry towards renewable energy that we've found. We have a 3-megawatt project that we'll begin construction on this year in central part of Chile. And thus far, we've not entered into a PPA, in part because while we agree that pricing is critical, we also believe that perhaps the largest advantage we have as a renewable industry is that we have a fixed price to offer. So the mining industry, in my opinion, doesn't seem to recognize the great benefit that the renewable industry offers with a fixed price against the floating fuel price right now is very low, and so all of a sudden, of course, the mining industry says, well, this is a great moment, we're going to expect prices to go down, but the experience is that prices go down and they go back up. Certainly $40, $70 oil is far under the 100+ price of oil that I think we can expect over the next 20 years. And on that basis, it would seem to me that the mining industry should be willing to give value for the fixed price offered by renewables, but at least thus far, I really haven't seen that in my experience, and I just wonder what the panel has seen in that regard.
So, I'm sorry, Ron, so what's your question? You'd like to know from the panel what they feel about that? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know who wants to go ahead and answer Ron's question. Would you like to give it a try? Yeah?
No, I think this is an interesting issue, and I think it was something that was also raised in one of the panels yesterday in terms of the view of the mining companies towards that fixed price. The question is whether from their perspective is, well, if you look at the fixed price, it could be a pretty high price when looked in 5 years from now. Whether the fixed price is an advantage depending on your evaluation of the long-term scenario that you will be facing. So it's a tricky question, I think, from the perspective of the mining companies. I think that again brings us back to the issue of how to address that concern in terms of when thinking and when framing the contract. At the same time, and here I'm taking what again was mentioned by one of the panels from the mining industry yesterday, was some of the approaches that the mining companies have taken in that regard, and in order to address that concern, is also be part of joint ventures with the renewable energy generators in order to also address that concern and try to align the incentives on that end.
Good. I'd like to continue onwards with these gentlemen, but we are short of time. I think Adrian just came up to tell us that. So I really appreciate your cooperation, your collaboration today, your participation, and hopefully we're all successful in the market in providing the right mix for the mining industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.